Since I spent a few months buying and reselling iPhones, I figured I'd go ahead and make a video giving you guys the average sale price for each iPhone that I've purchased. So the iPhones that I will be going through in this video are the iPhone 8 Plus all the way up to the iPhone 11 Pro Max, because those are the best selling phones. Anything in between there are the ones that I mainly focused on, because I'm not looking for very old phones, nor am I looking for the newest phones, because you can't get good deals on them. So let's go ahead and jump into the average sale price for each of these devices so that you could find out how much you should be buying them for. So right over here we have the iPhone 8 Plus, and this is easily one of the best selling phones. As you guys could see, it comes with different storage options just like almost every other iPhone. The 64GB option will sell for around $150 to $220 after you list it, and the only reason there's a huge price gap in between that is because there are different colors for this phone. Some colors are in higher demand than the others, just like the silver color won't be in as much of a high demand as this red color that you guys see in the background, and that's only because the red color is more appealing and it's a lot more harder to purchase. Then you have the 128GB option that will go from $170 to $240, and then the 256GB option for $190 all the way up to $260. Now all of these are kind of their own price because you guys live in different areas, so you guys will have to figure out how these phones will sell for themselves. But as you guys could tell right over here, this is a decent price range for you to guess how much you should purchase these phones for to make at least a $50 profit on each purchase that you make. So the next phone is the iPhone 10, and this is easily one of my favorite phones to purchase because they sell same day almost every time that I used to buy them. And then as you guys could see, this one sells a bit more expensive. You have $200 to $230 being the average sale price for a 64GB option. For 128, you have $210 to $250, and then for the 256GB option, it's $240 to $320. Now the 256GB option has a much higher gap because most people will either be looking to buy that phone for a cheap price because they're thinking that the 256GB option should be the same price as the other two storage options, or they're willing to pay top dollar because they actually know the worth of it. So it kind of depends how they negotiate with you and if you even accept negotiation. So it's something to consider, especially depending on the area that you live in. The next phone we have is the iPhone XR, and the iPhone XR is a pretty unique phone to sell because you could find these for a very good price, especially compared to most. Like right here, I say that the 64GB option could easily be sold for $200, but sometimes you could find these phones for like $120 to the point where you could list them up for $180 to make your $50 profit or your $60 profit. So that's something to keep in mind. Then you also have the 128GB option, which is $210 to $250, and then you have the 256GB option for $220 to $265. Now keep in mind, like I said, this is the average price that you could list the phones for sale for because this is how much they normally sell for. So if you guys are looking to purchase these phones, the main goal here would be to like target $50 below the price that I'm talking about in this video, just so you could guarantee at least a $50 profit. That's kind of the approach that I took over time when I was reselling phones, because one thing that I realized is that if I guaranteed myself some type of profit, then purchasing a phone would not be as risky because it would still sell pretty fast, since I'd still be going under market value for most of the devices that are currently listed. So it would sell around the same day, and that's what I used to do with the iPhone XRs, especially because when you have a good colored phone and you take some nice photos for it, trust me, it's going to sell very fast, and it's something that I really took pride in. So I made sure that those photos always came out good. Now next up we have the iPhone 10. The iPhone XS I should say, and then the iPhone XS right over here, as you guys could see, comes with a higher storage option going all the way up to 512GB, and if you guys get your hands on one of these, you could sell this for a pretty penny. Now starting at the 64GB option, you could also buy this for around, you could also sell this for around $200, and the reason for that is because most people sometimes don't even know that they have an iPhone XS instead of an iPhone 10, so they'll list it for the same price as you guys could see over here. And there's a decent price range between the 64GB one where there's like $200 to $240 that you could potentially sell it for, and like I said before, that's all dependent on the color. The gold colorway seems to sell a whole lot more, so if you guys end up getting the black one, that might be the reason that you sell it for $200, but $240 would be because you got the gold option. Then the 256GB option is going to be from $250 to $300, and then the 512GB is $260 to $310. Now the 512GB one, depending on your area, could sell for a whole lot more. The only reason this was my average sale price was because people were looking to buy this phone 24/7, and since I was pretty good at negotiating, I would go ahead and just put it up for sale for this price. But realistically, you could be putting this phone up for sale for around $400. If you were able to buy it for, let's say, like $280, then you'd still make $120 profit. And if you guys were to go ahead and buy the 256GB option, you could still make a decent amount of money off of that because you could list it for as high as $350. But these numbers right over here are kind of the price, or kind of the price ranges that would help you sell it the same day. So that's kind of why I kept it at a decently low price range, because I feel like if you guys were to make a $50 profit in one day as opposed to waiting 3 days to make $100 profit, you'd be able to buy more phones because you'd have $150 over a 3-day period as opposed to $100. So if that makes sense to you, you kind of get what I mean, and it kind of makes makes more sense to compound your business a lot faster to keep on growing your phone arsenal. So next up is the iPhone XS Max, and this one right over here has the 64 gig, 256 gig, and 512 gig option as well, and this one sells for a lot more, as you guys can see. The 512 gig I would normally list for around $420. I wouldn't even focus on that $320 range, mainly because this phone sells very fast. People are always looking for a plus size phone, and I believe this was like the first plus sized iPhone with a notch to come out, so people were buying this phone like crazy, including myself. And normally for the 64 gig, I was able to get this one for like $220, and that's only because sometimes it would have a few scratches or dents on the stainless steel side, so people would just let their phone go for a lot cheaper. But you could easily list the phone for anywhere in between these price ranges, because these will allow you to sell it the same day. And another thing too is that if you guys take pictures with this one in the sun, the photos come out so much nicer for some reason. I feel like it's the stainless steel along the side that just add a lot more characteristic to each photo, and I found that to help me sell phones a lot faster as well. Now the next phone is the iPhone 11, which is the phone that I have right over here. This phone is a very good high seller because it was the first phone to have these split cameras where it's like a dual camera lens, the two little circles, and people just went crazy for this. The 64 gig you could easily sell for $300 to $350, and one thing that I realized is that people sell this phone for a lot cheaper around September, along with every other iPhone, because around September is when the new iPhones seem to come out. So if you guys could get your hands on one of those, trust me, it's going to be well worth it. And if you guys get a whole bunch of them, then you could sell them for a lot of money, as you guys could tell over here. The iPhone 11 practically sells for the same amount as the iPhone XS Max, and in my opinion, the XS Max is actually a better phone. It has that beautiful OLED display, unlike this one, which has an LCD display, but people don't really know that, so they don't really care. But for the most part, right over here, you guys could easily purchase this phone for like $200 to $250 if you have good negotiation skills. And if you could sell the 64 gigabyte option for $350, then you'd easily make $100 to $150 profit the same day that you buy it. All you have to do is make sure you clean the phone down and wipe off the fingerprints beforehand, because trust me, that's going to affect how fast the phone sells. And then over here we have the iPhone 11 Pro, and the iPhone 11 Pro has the 64 gig option, the 256 gig, and 512, just like the other ones. And this one sells for a lot more because it has the triple camera lens. So you guys could sell this one for up to $600 for the 512 gigabyte option. Now this phone is easily one of my favorites, especially when it comes to buying this phone. It'll sell almost like an hour after I listed it. And one thing that I realized that might have been the reason for it is because people were looking for the newest iPhone that still had 3 cameras, even if they weren't actually getting the newest iPhone. So since the iPhone 13 Pro Max, the iPhone 14 Pro Max, and the iPhone 12 Pro Max all had 3 cameras, I guess people just figured if they could get a phone with 3 cameras, it would look the same if they put it in a phone case. So that's why the iPhone 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max would sell so good. So if you guys get your hands on these are probably going to be your best selling phones, because they definitely were mine as well. And another thing too about this phone is that you could easily buy it for a lot cheaper than what I have it listed for over here, because normally once you start negotiating for these phones, if it has a little scratch on the sides or a little dent, you could easily bring the price down by like $50, especially if it has a low battery capacity. So there's a lot of things that you should check on these phones to allow you to negotiate as good as possible, because I used to do that a whole lot. And another thing too is if you guys know how to fix phones, you could buy these phones for $100, and if you guys know how to remove iCloud blockage, then you could also take that off as well and sell the phone for a huge profit. And personally, that's something that I've never done because I never learned how to, but if you guys could do that, trust me, you're going to make a lot more money than most average resellers, and that's something to look into. Then right over here we have the iPhone 11 Pro Max, and this one right over here is one that I'd say it was my best seller of all time. Like, this phone was easily my favorite to purchase because not only did it look good on photo, but it was also very high in demand, especially since everybody was looking for the newest iPhone. And like I said, this one has 3 cameras and it's the plus size version, so you could easily sell this thing for $620 pre-owned. But another thing too is that for this 512 gigabyte option, you could buy it for so much cheaper. One thing that I've realized is a lot of people don't even care about how much storage the phone has. They don't really think that it affects the actual price of the phone. So if you guys could go ahead and negotiate on this phone as if it's a 64 gigabyte option, you could buy it for like $400, and as you guys could see, you could sell this thing for $620. That's a $220 profit off of one device. So if you guys are looking for a very good high selling iPhone, this one right here is the one that I would focus on. If you could find this phone for $400 every time you purchase it, it's gonna sell every time. And one thing to keep in mind is you got to make sure that the battery hasn't been replaced, nor has the screen been replaced, because that's one thing that affects how often people will actually buy from you. I found that if the screen was replaced, a lot less people were interested, and that's mainly because it wouldn't be water resistant no more, since the little adhesive on the side of the screen would be removed. So make sure you keep that in mind. And if the battery is replaced, make sure that it's an actual Apple battery and it's just not one of those secondhand batteries that you could buy off of eBay. So if you guys did enjoy this video and this is going to help you guys out in your phone reselling journey, make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you are new. I highly appreciate all the support I've been getting lately, and I hope you guys stay tuned for the next future videos that I have based on phone reselling. I'll see you guys in the next one.